The Hawaii United Okinawa Association's virtual Okinawan Festival is made possible thanks to donations from viewers like you. Mahalo and ippe nihe debiru.
Aloha! Please kokua and help us reach new viewers by subscribing to our HUOA YouTube page. Look for the red subscribe button on the bottom right. It's free. Your subscription supports our mission to share Uchinanchu Aloha around the world. Also, don't forget to give our videos a thumbs up. Mahalo and yuta surugutu urige sabina.
Hi, everybody. Hey, Colin. How are you? So for our viewers, just wanted to say, I'm going to quickly, before I jump into a lot of the other HUOA updates, this way. I wanted to quickly introduce Colin Sewake, who's going to be my co-host tonight for a very special show that we have. Okay. So real quick, thank you again, all of you. I hope you are still getting your Uchinanchu newsletter. It only comes out every other month, but it's still chock full of information. But for the most up-to-date news, you want to visit our HUOA.org website, where you can find information. And we have upcoming events. People are here from, things are opening up again. We're starting to actually do some in-person things. The Hawaii Okinawa Center is open now. So if you go to the HUOA.org website, you'll see that we have an announcement for an upcoming golf tournament. This is the 50th anniversary of our HUOA Goodwill Golf Tournament. So we're super excited. It got pushed back. It was supposed to happen in 2020. It couldn't happen in 2021. So here we are in 2022. So you can download the application form there. We also have let's see if I can do this real quick. Wanted to make sure that everyone can also come to our HUOA Senior Health and Fitness Fair. So that is the one that we want to make sure that, again, 2 years hiatus, we weren't able to do it. And the Senior Health and Fitness Fair is on June 17th. So vendor applications are now open. If you know somebody who can or wants to, offer a service to any of the HUOA, it's open to the general public. So health and wellness for seniors. You can see there, vendor applications are now open, but save the date. This is a daytime thing on Friday, June 16th. A lot of people from all over West Oahu. A lot of these senior fairs often only happen in Honolulu, in town. So this is one of the few that's up here in Central Oahu. So save the date, come and join us, and we're super excited to have this Senior Health and Fitness Fair after 2 years. Again, you want to scroll up a little bit. Sorry, on the golf tournament. Sorry, the golf tournament is up there too. I would also be remiss to not mention that our HUOA Legacy Awards banquet is going to happen on July. Oh, there it is. Sorry, the golf tournament. That's where you can click for more information if you want. It's a 2-day tournament. It's one of the very few 2-day tournaments here in Hawaii still. There's a lot that only do 1 day. We're proud. We're holding that tradition strong for 50 years. So we're excited to be able to welcome back our golfers again. So especially our neighbor island friends. A lot of people will fly in for the neighbor islands and other places to join our golf tournament as well. Okay, so all of you, your regulars, have already been doing it, but especially for today's show, because we got people from all over the place probably chiming in, let us know where you're tuning in from, what city, state, country. We have Colin actually joining us from Okinawa. And what time is it over there right now, Colin?
It's just past 2:00 p.m. on Wednesday, April 13th afternoon.
Yeah, tomorrow. That's right. Okay.
It's your tomorrow.
Thank you so. Yeah, and Colin, tell us a little bit about yourself and the work that you've been in Okinawa now for 27 years, right?
Yeah, I got so originally from, I think most people know I'm from Hawaii, right? From Wahiawa, graduate
Mm-hmm.
from Lelewa, with the Mighty Mules,
Yes.
1989, and then I went to University of Hawaii. I stayed home for school, um, graduated in 1994 with my education degree, but I was also in the Air Force ROTC program.
That's right.
And when we chose what assignment we wanted, I chose Japan, thinking that I would get sent to like Tokyo or Misawa up north, and I got Kadena Air Base. So I ended
Mm-hmm.
up here, and I said, "Well, wow, this is just like Hawaii. It's just really temperate. People are nice and everything." And this is where I met my wife. So I ended up staying here, and I've been here ever
You're
since
forever home
1994.
now.
This
Yeah.
is my home. This is home now for me. This is home away from Hawaii. So here I am, and I just got in touch with you folks several years ago, and just started helping out with Hawaii Okinawa projects
Relations.
and
Yeah.
events and things like that. So and I see like lots of people already commenting, like saying hi to us, and got like Courtney out there, we got the Kohala people,
Karen Takara
and all
said,
the comments are starting to roll in. So
hey, Colin, good to see you. She said, there's Kathy Matsuda from Kohala.
I see
And
Kathy, I see a
look,
Gushkin
we
out
have
there.
other people from Yomitan,
Yeah,
Nagahama.
my Yomitan family in Hawaii is there. Like I see Gwen Fujia too
Yeah,
up
that's
there.
right.
Hey, my neighbor up the street, you Cutting Marsh. She's watching.
That's too funny.
I
But
can
yes,
walk
this
off
is
like
one
in
of the
5 minutes.
beautiful things about Yuntaku, right? And the
Yes.
reason we have Colin here hosting is because he is very good friends with our special guest today. So we're going to introduce Ryan Shimabukuro. For those of you who don't know, he's an Olympic hopeful and U.S. speed skating coach. And so I think this is a great story because one has to wonder, how does this kid from Hawaii grow up to be the U.S. speed skating coach? And it is an amazing story. So he's the U.S. national sprint team coach for U.S. speed skating. And I'll let Colin. Well, maybe we'll bring him on first, and then you can tell us how far you guys go back.
Let's bring him on.
Let's bring
Ryan.
him on. Yeah,
Bring him on here. Come on, Ryan.
Ryan. Where's Ryan? DJ.
We'll see him in a sec here, coming out.
Okay, wait, hang on.
Are
So
we
we'll
supposed
see.
to do a drum roll first
Are
or
we
something?
supposed to do drum roll first? Right. Okay, well, hang on. As we get Ryan back up here, we'll make sure that there he is.
There's Ryan. There.
What's up, you guys?
How you guys doing?
How's
How
it
you
going,
doing?
Ryan?
All right.
Ryan,
Glad-
tell us where you're calling in from tonight.
So I'm based in, or I live in Layton, Utah. It's just about 20 minutes north of Salt Lake City, and this is the home of U.S. speed skating.
Very cool. Very
Yeah.
cool. And what time is it over there? It is like 11
Yeah,
p.m.
just after 11, about 11 p.m.
Woo. Well, thanks for joining us. And it's a late evening for you, but we're here to talk stories. So let's like kind of back up and figure out, how did you and Colin actually originally meet?
I got my story, but Ryan, I'll let you share first.
Well, so
Compare notes.
I used to spend a lot of my weekends in Wahiawa at my grandparents' house, and I used to just play in the yard and out front. And I remember, Colin's a couple years older than me, and him and his Wahiawa friends from his classmates and stuff like that, they'd be riding their bikes or skateboarding around. And if you ever go all the way to the end of California Avenue, it loops around and it comes back, right? So, they'd be riding around and stuff like that. And probably after a couple of times, they finally just came up to me and say, "Hey, you want to play?" So, we were really young at the time, and so I just started hanging out with them, and we would go ride bike all the way up, up to the shopping center, or all over. So
nice,
yeah,
man.
Colin, how do you remember it?
How do you remember this?
That's pretty much the story. Okay, that's pretty much the story. What it was his grandparents lived down the street from where I grew up, in that loop. And Saturday mornings, so where we live is all residential. There's no stores, there's no restaurants. So if you're down there, you're either a resident, or you're looking for a friend or family down there, or you're just lost if you end up way down there. So growing up there, we knew everybody, all the adults, all the families, and we knew as kids, we knew the other kids because we knew who was there to play with. So I would see this. I mean, we're little kids, but this other little kid, I would see him riding by himself. As I'm watching cartoons on Saturday morning, I could see this kid just going around his bike in circles around the loop all the time. So I'd see him speed by, and then a few minutes later he'd come by again, and I was like, who's this guy? You know. So one day I'm with my friends that I always played with, and I go up, and Ryan's, he's just kind of leaning on his bike. He's looking down at the ground and stuff. So I told my friends, hey, let's go invite him to play with us. So I go over to Ryan, I pedal my bike over. I say, you want to play with us? And he said, okay. And he joined us. And ever since then, we became really good friends. And we spent all the weekends that he visited his grandparents. We spent all that time together. That's
real small kid time. Real small kid time. We're talking, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't get more local than that, right?
Right.
I was in the 4th grade at Colin Elementary School. Ryan was in the 2nd grade, so this is younger elementary.
You guys get good memory, yeah, from that time.
Yeah, second grade. Yeah, 2nd grade. I was still in Grace Bible Christian School up in Aleva Heights area in Kalihi. So
okay, so let's try and place you. So tell us a little bit about your family, right? And where you went to school, and but we got to know where you went to school, yeah. So
okay, so yeah, I grew up in Kalihi and went to Grace Bible Christian School from preschool until 3rd grade, and then went to Wanalua Elementary School from 4th grade to 6th grade, and moved to Salt Lake, Wanalua area, and went to Wanalua Intermediate. And then after my first semester of my sophomore year at Wanalua High School, that's when I was already skating at that point for a couple of years, and I got invited to a training program in Marquette, Michigan. And so I left, and after my first semester of my sophomore year at Wanalua High, and I was at Marquette Senior High for the 2nd semester of my sophomore year. And then I moved to Wisconsin, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Wow. And I graduated, I did my junior and my senior year at Waukesha North High School in Wisconsin. So,
wow,
yeah.
That's commitment. Well, okay, well, we're going to get back to how you went from, training here to Wisconsin. That's not a small leap.
Right.
I gotta ask, wait, what is GBA?
That's Grace Bible Christian School.
Oh, Grace Bible Christian
School. Brenda's a former classmate. What's up, Brenda?
Oh, that's too good. Preschool, from preschool to 3rd grade. Okay. Wow. Very good. Very good. Okay. So I think we have an old photo of you guys, right? This is circa 1982 or so, I feel like. The kids watch Stranger Things nowadays, yeah. And they gotta know this is real kid time, right? Oh,
look at how cute those 2 guys were. I mean, they're so cute today, but look how cute they were back then.
Oh, this is so good. Both of you guys.
So this is when I was living at Sunset Lakeview condominiums in Salt Lake, still there, right by Salt Lake Shopping Center. Gosh. And my sister Kireen was having her sweet 16 birthday at our condo. So my parents let me invite one of my friends, and so I invited Colin. So he came with my grandpa. My grandpa drove him from Wahiawa, and we spent that night, partying with my sister and my family and her friends and stuff. So, yeah.
Wow, this is classic. This is real.
I think this is the only picture I have of the 2 of us during the small kid days. Because I remember that grandma picking me up, went to Mauna Loa, go to the parking, then went into the community area for the condo, and all the drinks and the food was there, and I was just hanging out with my childhood friend,
Actually, we have another. I found another picture from the party with you, me, and my uncle Billy, who works for Hawaiian Airlines. So yeah. So, but I mean, we were eating. We were eating at that point. This picture was the first picture we took. But yeah, those 2 pictures are the only ones I ever remember us having of each other.
That is so precious.
No digital cameras, no cell phones back then.
Yeah, so nobody had, exactly, unless it was a special occasion, right?
Right.
So that's why it was a birthday party, right? So that's probably the only time you guys had a camera out. Oh, this is great. Okay, so Ryan, so tell us, how did you get interested in speed skating?
So
big leap for like those of us here in Hawaii. So tell us how
Yes.
it all started.
So, my dad, when we were living in Kalihi and the 1980 Winter Olympics was being televised on TV, it's from Lake Placid, New York. And I was 6 years old at the time. And Eric Heiden, the greatest speed skater ever from the US, won all 5 gold medals, individual gold medals at those games. Unprecedented, hasn't been done since, and probably will never be done ever again. And it wasn't like I'm 6 years old. It wasn't like I sat down and watched all his races, intently. But I remember the race my dad was watching, and it had to be one of his sprint races because I remember him going fast, and he's wearing the gold suit, and so he looks like kind of like a superhero. And I'm like, oh man, that looks really, really cool. No pun intended. But the Ice Palace didn't open up until a couple of years later. Ice Palace didn't open up until 1982. And I didn't actually start skating until 1985. It wasn't until like 5th grade. I remember seeing his Eric Heiden's sister, Beth Heiden, in one of my social studies books. I forgot what the story was, but like she was doing dry land training exercises, and there was a couple of pictures of her. And that kind of jotted my memory, and like, oh yeah, speed skating. So, and a couple of my friends, around 6th grade time, they started skating on the weekends just for fun, and they always try to get me to go. But as much as I wanted to do it, I was also scared, right? I'm like, ice skating, oh whoa. But then one time, one day, one of our family friends had a birthday party at Chuck E. Cheese in Pro City, and afterwards they were like, "Oh, let's all go ice skating." And I'm a kid, right? So I don't have driver's license, or I gotta go where they go. So we all pack in the cars from Chuck E. Cheese, head over to Stadium Mall, and went skating, and I loved it. Fell in love with it right away. Skated for about 2 hours or so, and I only fell one time. And from then on, I spent every weekend, at the Ice Palace. I was saving up my money from my newspaper route. I was a paper boy for Star Bulletin, and I saved up enough money to buy my own pair of hockey skates because I didn't know what real speed skating was. I just skated in, street clothes and hockey skates, and up
Or
until
whatever
then,
the Ice Palace rented you, right?
yeah. I mean, before that, yeah, I was just using the rental skates, the rental figure skates. And so when I got my hockey skates, I had to learn how to, skate on hockey skates because they don't have the toe picks at the front, right? So that was a bit of a challenge to overcome. But yeah, so then I enrolled in the speed skating class, and it was 1 hour a week on a Thursday afternoon. And at one point, our club was pretty big. It got up to over 50 people. And then we would supplement the rest of our time by skating public sessions on Friday or Saturday. So after I deliver paper on Saturday, I'd come home, shower, change, jump on the bus, or luckily, if I was lucky, one of my siblings or one of my parents would drop me off at Stadium Mall and would skate there for like 6 hours until about 10:30, 11 at night. And if you ever skated at Ice Palace, you know that after every resurface, they'll put out the cones on the hockey dots and let you speed skate for one song. So that's really the only time I could actually practice going fast and so forth. So, and then while the rest of my friends would stay there until closing, I had to go home a little bit early because I had to be up at like 3 a.m. to deliver Sunday morning paper. Yeah, so I was delivering paper at 4 a.m. So, that's how it pretty much went. And I was saving my money to go up to this competition, what was called the ISIA Nationals. And I thought that was the real nationals, and come to find out many years later that, it's a development organization. It's just, kind of focused on grassroots and so forth. And one of the figure skating coaches at the time, she got, we had a team meeting on the Hawaii team that was going to go to this competition with the parents to give them all the information. And after the meeting was done, she came up to me and my parents. She said, "Hey, just so you know, we got a call from the secretary at the Amateur Skating Union, and they're having a training camp this summer in Marquette, Michigan. And they were looking to see if there's anybody from Hawaii that would be interested in coming. And the head coach is going to be Diane Holum, who's an Olympic champion speed skater herself. She was Eric Heiden's coach and 3-time Olympic team coach." And right away I was like, "No, I've been practicing and training and saving up to go to this competition. That's what I want to do. I want to win this." And she's like, "Okay." And then my dad was like, on the way home, this was at Radford High School. The meeting was at Radford High School. And I lived in Salt Lake, so it's just like a 5-minute drive home, right? And my dad was like, this training camp sounds like it'd be a much better use of your money. You probably get a lot more out of it than just going to one competition. And I fought him. I was like, no, I've been training for this. And what I call training, I didn't know what training really was. And so after, long story short, after probably, some good discussion and about an hour, he kind of convinced me. It started to make sense. So I called up the coach. I said, hey, can you get some more information? Give me the number to contact the secretary. So fast forward, to the summer of, 1987. I just turned 14 years old, and I'd never went out of state, or I shouldn't say that. I had visited my relatives up in the Washington state and stuff like that, but not for athletics or anything like that.
Yeah.
And so they put me in contact because I was going to go up there myself. And so none of my parents or anybody else was going. It was just me. So they put me in contact with Jerry Search. He was a coach out of Long Beach, California, and a part of the Demora Ice Skating Club. So I stayed with him for a couple of days. He took me to an ice skating session, and that's when I really found out what speed skating was about. He taught me how to sharpen skates. He showed me a video, gave me a video session, like teaching me about technique. Then we went to the training session that night, and I was in way over my head. I went from being on hockey skates to actual speed skates for the first time. And most people don't understand that the blades are different. Hockey skates and figure skates, there's a hollow. So you're basically skating on two runners on the ice. Speed skates are flat. They're like 90-degree angles. So, and you hand sharpen them. You don't machine sharpen them. So I'm just sliding all over the place because I didn't know how to control my edges. And so I'm squeaking, making all these funky noises, and they're looking at me like, "Who is this kid?" But by the end of the session, I started to skate much better and so forth. And the next day, we hop on the plane, go up to Marquette, Michigan, for the whole week of training camp. And what I thought was going to be a development camp ended up being like we're coming into the 1988 Winter Olympics 6 months later.
Okay.
So we had skaters at that camp that eventually made the Olympic team going to Calgary. And, so you had skaters from 10 years old all the way up to masters, in their 50s and 60s. But also you had U.S. national team and what was going to be Olympic teams skaters. So I'd never done dryland training before. I never knew what actual training was. And so our daily regimen was, okay, get up at 6 a.m., you go for a morning run before breakfast with the entire camp, so 100 of us. And then after breakfast, we do our first dryland training session of the morning. Then we go to, we did a lecture first, an hour lecture in the class where Diane explained technique and what we're going to work on. Then we go into dryland for about 2 hours, have lunch, short break, and then go into class again for a lecture.
Real training.
And then we went on ice for 2 hours after that. And some of the nights, like every other night, I believe, after, if I remember correctly, after dinner, we would have a training session again. So by the second day, I couldn't even walk. I was in so much pain. It's a 7-hour time change from Hawaii. So like I'm all jet lagged, and I'd never had to deal with that before. So I was just miserable. And I was feeling really bad. But by the end of the week, I started to adjust, and then I had to fly home. And it was on the way home, Jerry Search had let me borrow a pair of speed skates that was custom made for somebody else, but they weren't skating anymore. So I asked him if I was able to buy those skates, which I did. I paid $150 in traveler's checks right there on the flight home. And, he stayed in touch with me, and that's obviously before email in the 80s. And so we would write letters, talk on the phone. He would send me training programs, and I had the training program from what we did at the camp that I would just try to replicate when I was home. So on the way home, I just decided, I'm dedicating myself to speed skating, and this is going to be a full-time adventure. Because if I wanted to make the Olympics at some point in my, in my future, this was going to have to be it. So I gave up everything else, and training became my full-time focus. And so,
Wow.
yeah.
I really hope anybody who's ever like just this all started from just being inspired by watching the Olympics, right?
Mhm.
On a tiny island in the middle of the ocean, watching the Olympics from far away, but like so I'm just thinking of all the like the kids that are still watching the Olympics, right? Whatever sport it is,
Right.
and being inspired by that. So I know you have a nickname, right?
So at that training camp,
Yeah.
so I get off the plane, and one of the other skaters was flying in at the same time, and they're picking us up. It was Mark Jeter, who is from St. Louis, Missouri. And so it was me, Jerry Search, and Mark Jeter. And then, we get to the training center, we're checking in, we get our keys to our room. And the rooms were like 2 people in a room, and you share a bathroom, a common bathroom with the other room. So you have 4 people sharing a bathroom area. And our suite mates, as we called it, they come over, introduce themselves. And obviously they all knew each other. I knew nobody. And so they come over, and, Tim Quinn from Cleveland, Ohio, he's like, "Oh, what's your name? Where are you from?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm Ryan, from Hawaii." And he's like, "Ryan the Hawaiian," and it just stuck. Like those 3 guys in the room, they started calling me Ryan the Hawaiian. So by the next day, everybody was calling me that. And then, as times went on, it was Ryan the Flying Hawaiian. And then when I would have bad races and I'd be, just keeling over, it'd be Ryan the Dying Hawaiian. So but that's how I got my nickname. I was from Tim Quinn Jr. from Cleveland, Ohio. So
That is awesome. And I thought so you're totally bringing back memories of Ice Palace for me. I went there a lot. Okay, not like 6 hours a day. I went like one afternoon, maybe every couple months, right? But it was
and it wasn't every day. This was like on a Friday or Saturday.
But still, like that is and just knowing that I'm sure it was intimidating, like going there from Hawaii, right? Like you said, not knowing everybody, they all knew each other, but I'm so impressed, right, that you kind of persevered and came back and like dedicated your life to this. So I also I've heard you're on the local TV shows, right, that were super popular back in the day. Because I remember it's Flying Hawaiian, right?
Well, tell them about it, Ryan. Tell them the shows.
Well, they didn't call me the Flying Hawaiian in Hawaii, but I mean, the first TV show I was on Hawaii Super Kids with Andy Bumatai in 1987. I was in the 8th grade, and then I was on about maybe 6 months or 8 months later. I was on the Best of Hawaii Super Kids, and Hawaiian Moving Company. That was in 1994 with Michael W. Perry. No, actually 1993. I was on Hawaiian Moving
Company. All right.
Is that show still on?
I don't think so, right?
I think a long time ago. I think they ended the program. But I think if you go on YouTube, and you can probably.
I bet you. I know. I'm actually trying to YouTube it right now.
Yeah. So
with Michael W. Perry. I mean, everybody watched that show, right? Like,
right. And you got to remember, there was a 4-year period from 1989 to 1993. I didn't come home from the mainland. So when I came home in 1993, I don't know how it came about. Maybe Ice Palace had called or something like that. And so Hawaiian Moving Company wanted to do a story on me. So I was one of the stories in that springtime of '93. The next year, when I started to do a lot of fundraising, and my fundraising organization that my family and friends created for me, they started to do a big publicity push to get me more exposure, so I could get more support. So just local news shows. I was invited to be a part of a Metagold educational promo video for the Hawaii school system. So I did that.
I think I remember this too.
Yeah. So, I mean, there was a handful of things, nothing super big, but it was good memories, good fun, and good times.
Awesome. So wait, so you said, that initial training session, I mean, it must have been it's a lot of learning, but you said you came back home and you kind of decided, right, that you were going to do this for real.
Yeah.
So So tell us what happened after that initial training.
So, you know, and I still have the VHS videotapes of that whole week I was in Marquette, Michigan. I bought the whole set. So Jerry Search filmed everything. And that's what he would do. He would go around to competitions and training camps and film it. And he would sell it to skaters and their families to just not to make a profit, but just to cover his expenses. So I bought the whole set, you know, I think it's 7 VHS tapes. And it was my first competition at the end of the training camp. We had the Great Lakes State Championships, and I got to race, and I came home with a gold medal for my division. And so when I got home, I started to realize, like, okay, I need training equipment. So I started to make a list, and you know, I needed a bike because road biking is a big part of speed skate training. Yeah, and so at the time, and you know, I only had a BMX bike at the time. I was delivering, you know, papers with my Hutch Trickstar freestyle bike. So I sold that right away, and I was saving up more money to get a bike. And in the meantime, my dad he's like, hey, I got a 10-speed bike at Grandma and Grandpa's house you can use. You know, it's called the Fuji Feather. I don't know why they call it a feather, because that thing weighed like 50 pounds. And it was super big. Like, it didn't fit me at all, but I had to put the seat all the way down on the top tube, and I'm like pedaling with my toes, you know. So I'd be riding, you know, 30, 40 miles on this thing, you know, just being totally uncomfortable. But then eventually I was able to buy a friend's used 10-speed real road racing bike. And it was still too big, but it was all I could afford at the time. My dad made me a slide board that's basically, you know, a piece of plywood with 4 mic on the top, and you got padded bumpers on the side. It's about 8 feet long, and you can simulate the straightaway stroke of speed skating. Built me a very nice slide board. I also bought my own weight set. I made sandbags for other strength training exercises. Yeah. And so, you know, in our bedroom, me and my brother shared a bedroom. You know, I had my slide board, I had my bike, and I had a weight set, and we had our 2 beds. You know, in a small
I'm sure he was thrilled.
Yeah. So I mean, fortunately, he was already, like, you know, on his way, you know, moving out. He was going into the Air Force, so he wasn't there that much. So I was able to move stuff around. But anyway, like I would start training, like I would do my first workout before school. So I'd get up at about anywhere between 4 and 5 a.m. and I'd be out the door and try to be back home by 7 a.m. so I could shower and get ready for school. And I would do my homework at school, like during, you know, lunch break or recess. I would do my homework as much as I could, because the last thing I wanted to do after, you know, because I'd come home from school, get something to eat, watch a part of the videos from the training camp, and then I'd go do my workout for 2 to 3 hours. And so the last thing I wanted to do when I came home was spend another couple hours doing homework. So I always tried to do as much as I could while I was at school. So, and you know, my parents were always like, hey, school first. You know, if you don't get the grades, you don't get to skate, you know. So, and that's how it went for the first year, you know. And I went back to the training camp in 1988, and they saw I had made a lot of improvement on my own. Just being by myself in Hawaii. I mean, Jerry was helping me quite a bit from afar as much as he could. And so the Hawaii Speed Skating Club at the time, you know, it was, again, over 50 skaters at that point. That was probably at its biggest point in its history. You know, we decided, hey, why don't we try to hold a mini clinic, fly Jerry in for the club so the skaters can, you know, learn from him. So we brought him in to Hawaii for the weekend, like Thursday through Sunday in November of 1988. And it just so happened, and at the time I didn't realize this, but it just so happened that I got an invitation to come up to Marquette, Michigan to train in the national team program for short track. That's where our short track team was based at the time, at the U.S. Olympic Training Center, one of the sites. And so on the very last day before his flight left for Los Angeles, you know, we went to Bob's Big Boy and in Wanalua Gardens, and we're having lunch, and basically Jerry tells my parents, like, if Ryan's to do anything in the sport, he needs to leave Hawaii. Unfortunately, 1 hour a week of training ice, and then public ice, and not having the coaching and the facilities available to him, he's not gonna. Desire will only take you so far. And so, and we had like I said, I had gotten that invitation. And so, my parents made the decision to take out a $10,000 loan and, allow me to go to Marquette, Michigan and train that year. And I ended up winning 2 competitions. And my goal that year was to make the junior national team. And I just fell short. I missed the team by 1 point, but I also got 3rd overall in the national championships in the junior men's division, which was for me like a big goal to be in the top 3, which I did. So, but I always wanted to skate long track. Short track is done. If anyone knows Apollo Ono, that's short track. You race on a hockey rink on a 111-meter oval, and you're not really racing the clock. They take record keeping of the times just for record keeping purposes, but you're racing other competitors, and you're advancing from like quarterfinals to the semifinals to get to the finals where the medals are awarded. Now, long track is the more traditional style Olympic speed skating, where it's done on a 400-meter oval. You're racing in separate lanes, and everything's a time trial. And
you're racing against the clock.
Yeah, you're racing against the clock. Even though you might be racing a pair, you're ultimately racing the clock, and the fastest time at the end of the day wins. And I always wanted to do that. That's what Eric Hayden did, and that's what piqued my interest. But obviously, being in Hawaii, Ice Palace is a hockey rink. I had to skate short track. So when I was in Marquette, Michigan, during those 6 months, I was like trying to figure out like, what can I do, and at the time, the Midwest area, especially Milwaukee, was basically the developmental center. It was the heart of speed skating in the U.S. We had a 400-meter outdoor oval, the Wisconsin Olympic rink. Eventually, it became indoors. It was the first indoor 400-meter oval in the United States in 1993. But for 4 years, I skated outdoors, sometimes minus 60 below zero wind chill factor. Yeah, it was brutal. So eventually, like I told my parents, I said, I can find a skating family to board with and just stay. You don't have to, move from Hawaii. I can just stay there with them.
Wow.
And so, because I was the youngest of 4 children, and my sisters and my brother were already graduated and out of the house, my parents felt that it was important to keep a parental unit around me until at least I graduated. So they quit their jobs and moved to Milwaukee, Wisconsin with me in the summer of 1989. And once I started making the national team a couple of years later in 1991, and I was traveling more for competitions and training camps, my parents decided to move back in 1993 because my grandparents were ailing. They needed a little bit more care and so forth. So my parents ended up.
You're a little bit older at this point.
I'm older. I graduated from high school in 91. So yeah.
I want to bring up a comment from Samuel Gushken. He said he attended a fundraiser in Waipio near the HOC, Okinawa, and you had a meet and greet.
Yeah.
All the girls in young Okinawans was in awe of Ryan's muscular thighs. I feel like we have to.
That's a good comment.
Oh, Sam, I remember.
You remember this?
I remember. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it was always a thing. Like I remember being on the Perry and Price show one morning, like in 1994, and I'm on the stage, and one of the audience members asked to see my thighs, and I'm wearing pants. I'm like, I'm trying to roll up my pants or whatever finally, but she finally just came up on stage and like kind of like grabbed my thigh and so forth. But people at the fundraisers, I usually were wearing shorts and stuff like that, and they'd want to take pictures, and they're like, "Oh, flex your legs" and stuff like that. So, but I remember Sam. Yeah, and I actually think I might still have a picture from one of the fundraisers somebody took of my quads. So. But I'd have to dig through, but yeah, that's some good memories.
Well, this is awesome. I know we have some photos actually of probably that era, 1989
So yeah, so that picture, that's from 1989. That's my first ever long track race in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, when the rink was outdoors. That's a 500-meter start, and I remember that picture being
Outdoors.
taken. Yeah, that was outdoors, and
Wow.
that skin suit was actually the 1979 U.S. national team suit that they wore at the World Championships and other international events. But obviously, 10 years later, you could buy it off of people that had them, and I always wanted them. We called it the candy cane stripe descent suit, and that was like a hot commodity. So I was fortunate enough to get one, and yeah, I still wish I had that suit because it's like a collector's item.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's a classic, I'm
Oh.
sure. Okay, I think we have another one of you. Oh wow.
So this was in 1991. This is just a time trial in Milwaukee, still outdoors. You can see all the snow in the
Look at those
background.
guys.
And this was my first year making the junior national team. I'm 17 years old here, and I just like probably a couple of weeks before had earned my spot on the junior national team at the U.S. National Sprint Championships because that was the 1991 U.S. national team skin suit. And I was really proud. It's my first national team suit that I ever earned. So, and I still have it to this day. I have that.
That's
suit.
the one you still have. You still have that.
That's the one I still have. So,
Wow. Awesome. Okay, so I know so you end up going to high school, right? In where was it? Wisconsin?
Marquette, Michigan. Well, it's
Michigan,
Marquette.
sorry.
Yeah, Michigan for the second semester of my sophomore year, and then Waukesha North High School in Waukesha, Wisconsin, in my junior and senior year.
Awesome. So then when did you start, you said you made the junior national team. And then when did you start really seriously trying out for the Olympics?
Well, my first Olympic trials was in 1992. Was the next year after I made the junior national team. I had qualified for the Olympic trials, and but I was still a junior, and it wasn't the 92 Olympic trials was more like a tune-up event to qualify for the junior world championships a couple of weeks later. I didn't have a legitimate chance of making the 1992 team. 2 years later, so 1992 was the last time that the Winter and Summer Olympics were held in the same year. The International Olympic Committee had decided that moving forward, they would offset. Yeah, they were going to offset every 2 years. So the next Winter Olympics was only going to be 2 years down the road in 1994 in Lillehammer, Norway. Now I'm getting better, but I'm still not quite at the top where I had a legitimate chance of making the 94 Olympic team, especially with everybody, all our top guys staying, 2 more years. So 1998 was my legitimate chance, and out of my primary focus was the 1,000-meter, and I finished 6th, and they took the top 4. And back then, the way our Olympic trials were set, you raced the 500-meter 4 times, the 1,000-meter you raced twice, and they basically took the best 2 out of your 4 500s and the best 1 out of 2 1,000s. And after the first weekend, I had been skating personal best times, and everything was going in the right direction after a period of struggle. And so going into the next weekend, I was on a confidence high. I was feeling good. I felt like I had a really good chance of making that last spot. But on that Monday night in between, I went to Taekwondo to kind of just do a light workout to stay limber. And I came home that night, and in the middle of the night, I got really sick. And I had battled bronchitis and pneumonia my entire career. And so, the next morning I went to the doctor. They took a chest X-ray. They did other tests, and the doctor called me a few hours later, said, yeah, it's either a really bad case of bronchitis or you're just on the verge of pneumonia. And so I hang up the phone, and I knew at that point, like, my skating career was over. Like I couldn't expect my family and friends and all the people that supported me for so many years to go another 4 years. So, I called my parents first. I told them, what was going on, that I was going to have to withdraw from the Olympic trials. I called my coach, and but you know what? I made my peace with it pretty quickly because I'd skated my personal best times. I had every opportunity given to me, and I felt like I had nothing to regret. I gave my best effort.
That's
And
awesome.
so
Yeah.
I was actually planning on moving home to Hawaii, just, enrolling in school and living a normal life. But then within those first couple of weeks, a couple of friends or skaters, their friends, asked if I would coach them part-time until I moved home in the spring. So I said, okay, yeah, this could be fun. And within a month, I had 11 full-time skaters.
Oh,
So yeah,
Wow.
so by the end of that season, the second half of the
Wow.
1998 season, I had changed my plans and I decided to stay there and coach privately. I had a private group, and then after an Olympic season is done, typically USB skating goes through a big change of staff and turnover. Skaters retire. Some
Yeah.
coaches move on or they just switch roles. So my coach was being promoted to national sprint team coach, and they needed somebody to take his role as the Midwest regional development coach. So USB skating started to contact me in the spring, and I officially signed my first contract with USB skating in July of 1998. And so,
Wow.
yeah.
So it all kind of comes full circle. So like so this photo, can you go back real quick? Sorry. So you're showing training. I see you in is that karate-gi?
Yeah, so that's taekwondo. So
Taekwondo, you said taekwondo, yeah.
So J.K. Lee Taekwondo Academy in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. They have several schools, and during the 1995 World Sprint Championships in Milwaukee, their family, Grandmaster Lee, his wife, and Master Lee and their daughter, Mrs. Lee, they were like the translators for the Korean team, and the men's champion was from Korea, so they had a big celebration. But later that summer, Grandmaster Lee basically gave the U.S. national team scholarships to come train at their school. So we all we once a week would go as a team, and then we could go as much as we wanted individually. So I use the scholarship as much as I could. So I got to a high brown belt level. When I left Milwaukee in 2002 to move out here to Salt Lake City, I haven't pursued it since. But yeah, Taekwondo was a great part of my training, and big thanks to J.K. Lee Taekwondo for offering that opportunity to us. And
Awesome.
so we do short track training, obviously a lot of weight training. And I worked at Bally's Vic County in Brookfield, Wisconsin as a personal trainer. So where I'm lifting weights is where I also had a part-time job, and I would personal train clients there. We would run up Olympia Mountain in Okinawa, Wisconsin in the summer, doing maximum, what we call hill tempos, like max effort until you threw up. So, but yeah.
Well, what's the other picture, Ryan, with you holding the skates crossed?
Oh no, I was just or where?
A couple of pictures back.
Sorry.
I think it's like 2 pictures back or something. Yeah, right there with the skates crossed.
So, well, this picture right here is I'm on the start line of the 500 meter at the 1995 U.S. National Sprint Championships in Milwaukee. Now it's indoors. It's the Pettit National Ice Center. The next picture, if you go to the ones where the blades are crossed in front of me, so that one was for the Continental Micronesia In-Flight magazine. So they had contacted me to do a story for their In-Flight magazine. And so when I flew home to do my final promotional tour, I guess you could say, in 1997 for the 98 season, this was shot by Dana Edmonds in downtown Honolulu at his studio. And we're just trying to come up with some different kind of thoughts of how we could take pictures. And, he's like, man, you look like a superhero. You got any kind of poses or whatever? And I just came up with that on the fly, where I just crossed the skates in front of me. And he's like, oh, that looks awesome. Let's do that. And what you don't know is that it looks like it's indoors, right? In a dark room, but that's actually outside in the alley where it's bright sun shining down on me. And it's just the way he took the picture where he could control the lighting.
Wow.
That's pretty neat.
That's pretty cool.
So yeah, so Dana Edmonds took that picture, and he took another one that was the cover of the story, and he had asked me like, hey, if you don't mind, I'll put your photos in in a nationwide gallery, and if people or companies choose to use it, we'll get paid, and I'll pay you a percentage of the cost of it. I said, yeah, great. Come to find out, like 4 or 5 years later, some of my skaters are going to Canada for a competition, and they come back and they're like, hey, you're all over Calgary. I'm like, what are you talking about? They're like, your picture's all over Calgary. It's on the C train. It's in the rental car.
Oh
Like they
my
have this thing, and it's on the billboard. So one of my skaters brought back the review mirror hanger picture from the Hertz rental car or something. So I'm like, hey, this is a picture that Dana took. So I called Dana up right away. I'm like, hey, Dana, like, I'm not sure if you're aware, but this rental car company in Canada is using the picture you took of me back in 1997. Did you know anything about it? And he's like, oh no, let me look into that. And sure enough, they paid to use it, but he didn't get paid. So he ended up, they finally cut him a check, and then he sent me my portion of the payment for it. So I think it was like, I think it was like $200 or something like that. But anything
It's a great
helps.
photo. It is a great
big money back then.
Yeah.
Big money.
So I think for some of us who might and this was
I chose this picture to share. I chose this one because I never saw Ryan in a mustache when we were growing up.
So my friend Doug McKenzie, who was one of my teammates, and I just talked to him today on the phone, and he had convinced me like, hey, you should grow out a mustache and this and that. And I was like, okay, whatever. So after a little bit of time, and after I saw this picture, I'm like, I'm shaving it off. I look stupid. But this picture is taken in 1993, the summer of 1993. It was the U.S. Olympic Festival in San Antonio, Texas, and back in the 70s and 80s, and the last one that was held was in 1995. ESPN sponsored and put on this big, massive nationwide event to simulate the Olympic Games. They called it the U.S. Olympic Festival, and so sports, both winter and summer, and Pan American Games, not just Olympic sports, but Pan American sports, they would all get a chance to participate in the U.S. Olympic Festival. So obviously it's only short track because it had to be held indoor. So this was my last year I was eligible by age to make the team. And I had made the team actually 2 years earlier in 1991 for the LA Olympic Festival. But a month before the competition, I was in a training camp and I fell and I broke my ankle. So I never got a chance to compete in it. And one of my goals was always to win a medal at the Olympic Festival. So after a really bad 1992-93 season, I came home, I was a bit depressed, and I was trying to kind of find a way to finish out the season strong. And my friend Doug actually convinced me. He's like, hey, why don't you, it had been a couple of years since I skated short track. He's like, this is your last year for eligibility. Why don't you try to qualify for the Olympic Festival? So, in a month's time, I got a new pair of skates and, started training, and it was a rough go. And then each week got better and better. So by the time we got to the team trials, I was skating much better and I was able to qualify a spot for the team. And I was actually the oldest competitor at that event. And I ended up getting a bronze medal as a part of the South team 5,000 meter relay. So so that's awesome. The story on that picture. Well, my uncle took that picture because my uncle was living in San Antonio at the time. He was in the Air Force,
so he could come and see at the spectator. Oh, that is awesome.
Yeah.
I think while we've all kind of heard of you, I think people who are, like you said, Hawaii Super Kids, Hawaii Moving Company, and the Uchinan Chu community has also, tried to chip in and support your pursuits. So tell us a little bit about that back in the day, I think.
Oh yeah. So in 1994, after the 1994 Olympic season, and we're preparing for the next 4 years, which was going to be like, okay, 98 was where I had my really legitimate shot of making an Olympic team. obviously, my parents are like supporting me 100%, but I come from a blue collar, hardworking family, and they
Mm.
basically like, we need help. So a lot of their friends and relatives, they came together and they formed a fundraising organization called Nagano 98 Incorporated Friends of Ryan Shimabukuro. And so the goal was to raise $25,000 a year to offset my expenses of living in
Mm.
Wisconsin and training and equipment
Yeah.
and all that kind of stuff. And we kicked off the campaign in the summer of 1994. And my uncle worked at KCC, and he had students that had audio visual. They were
Mhm.
going to school for audio visual, so they came up with my promo tape to take to companies and so forth. So they're donating their time. One of our family friends, Grant Kagimoto, who's the owner of Kane Hall Road T-shirts,
Yep.
he donated the T-shirts and came up with. And my brother-in-law, who's a graphic designer, designed the logo for our first T-shirt. And so Grant's company printed the logos and did that all for free. So basically, it was like 100% profit for us. And so we were able to sell enough
Community coming
T-shirts.
together. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the Okinawan Association really got behind me. And any event I did, and I remember at the Okinawan offices at the headquarters, they had a launch for the one of the T-shirt designs, because we had 4 different designs. And yeah, anytime we had a fundraiser, they were there to support it. And we got invited to the 1997 Okinawan Festival at Kapiolani Park. uh, Governor Ben Cayetano and his wife came by the booth, and they bought shirts. And we had a bunch of politicians come by and buy T-shirts, as well as the community. So I've had nothing but great support, from the Okinawan Association, and the Hawaii Herald's given me great coverage through my career as a skater and as a coach. So
Well, we're all so proud. We see your last name, Shimabukuro. That's a very classic Okinawan, name. And so we're all
right,
so proud, right? And I think that's another, like you said, just the community coming together in different ways, right? Of,
right.
this guy, what he can do. He can do T-shirts. This one, multimedia stuff, and how it all kind of works together. That's the real Yui Maru of it. Yeah.
Right.
That was a really cool design, right, on the T-shirt, because wasn't it you in that pose? It was you
Yeah,
with the suit
so
on
we
and-
had so we had 4 different designs. The first one that you're talking about, yeah, I was in a starting position. That was taken from a picture from one of my mom's friends who was an attorney, and on his side business, he was a photographer. So a lot of the
Mhm.
pictures that was taken of me was from him. And uh, Grant Kagimoto also did this one design on his own. It was called ice slippers, and it was basically a pair of
Homoku slippers.
rubber slippers with
Yeah.
with speed skate blades on them, and that ended up being the most popular design on the mainland. I sold so many of them. Like, a lot of my teammates wanted them, their families wanted them, so I actually sold a lot of those shirts on the mainland. So yeah,
I mentioned that because I remember my mom went to the fundraiser and she picked up a shirt from me with you in the speed skate suit, and then you had autographed, like right, Colin, my childhood friend, my buddy from elementary school days,
you're right.
and I remember the picture on that shirt and the autograph that you did for me.
Right. And so, like, at the fundraisers, as they started selling the T-shirts at the booth, people would ask me to, autograph the shirts, autograph the programs that we had, and
Yeah.
all the promo literature. So I would just sit down at the booth and start autographing, the supporters' products, whatever they purchased, and so forth. So I would be there for hours, just meeting and greeting all the supporters. And I feel very blessed and fortunate. A lot of people say, like, oh, coming from Hawaii, it must have been very, very hard, which, okay, obviously there was a lot of challenges, but from the support standpoint, I don't think I could have been in a better place and situation, because, as you guys all know, like, Hawaii really rallies around their people.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like you said, Lynn, everyone came together as a community. And I was very, very blessed and fortunate to be in that situation. And I could never repay everybody for the support that I got. So I to this day I still say thank you very much for that.
That's such a neat story about the Hawaiian value of kokua, cooperation, and then in Okinawa we say yoimaru. So that
Yep.
that spirit is just really alive in Hawaii and Okinawa. That's a great story, right?
Yeah, and in a lot of ways, I know that there were mainland skaters that were kind of resentful of the attention that I was getting, because my first year that I lived in Milwaukee, USB skating, and I wasn't even on the national team yet, and I hadn't done anything really. But USB skating would have what they would call media day, so all the major outlets would come in, CBS Sports,
Mhm.
ESPN, all this kind of stuff. And the media attache, the media director for ESP skating, he introduces himself and he's like, "Hey, we got a lot of requests for you." And I'm like, kind of surprised, I'm like, stunned. I'm like, "You got Dan Jansen, you got Bonnie Blair, Eric Flame, Nick Thomas, you got guys winning Olympic medals and world titles. What do they want to talk to me for?" And they're like, "Well, they heard about you being from Hawaii and they want to hear your story." So there was a reporter from the Wall Street Journal there,
Huh.
and he's like, "Hey, this is an important guy you got to talk to." And again, I'm 16 years old at the time. I'm like, "Okay." So we're just talking. He's got
Yeah.
his recorder. We're in the warming house, and this full page article in the Wall Street Journal of 1989 comes out. And at the time, I didn't realize the only other speed skater that had been in the Wall Street Journal was Eric Hayden. And I guess to this day, there's only 3 speed skaters to ever be in the Wall Street Journal: Eric Hayden, myself, and Apollo Ono.
Paulo Ono, yeah.
Wow.
What I understand, that's what I've been told. So I didn't understand the gravity of it at the time. I got on ESPN, Scholastic Sports America. They had done a piece on me at that in that same day as well. And so I was getting a lot of attention, and maybe some of the skaters were a little bit resentful of the fact that I was getting that attention when they had been accomplishing greater feats than I had done at that point. But at the same time, also had a lot of support up there. I have really good friends, that were teammates, and to this day, they're some of my closest best friends. In Wisconsin, it was a really tight knit community. In a lot of ways, it had the aloha spirit.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah, our families were really close. We're still close to this day. And like I said, my teammate Doug McKenzie that I talked to today on the phone, he's like a brother to me. And my friend Mike Whitty, that he still coaches in the Wisconsin club at the Pettit Center. He's like a brother to me. So speed skating was more than just a sport to me. It's giving me lifelong friendships and family that maybe I wouldn't have gotten anywhere else.
Well, you took it to a whole nother level, and I know Colin has a bunch of questions about your coaching career. Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, oops. I think. Well, anyway, I'm gonna go. It looks like Colin's internet is going in and out. But so after deciding to hang up your skates, I'm sure that was a really tough decision, right? Like I'm sure I'm sure that was a tough time. But how did you go from being, the athlete, like you said, to a coach, and like within a really short time, it looks like you were able to like get, like you said, 11 full-time people that you were coaching. So how did you make that transition, and what was that like?
Well, to be honest, like when I got off the phone with the doctor, when I found out I was sick, my decision to retire was instantaneous. In that moment, I made my peace with where I was at. And um, when I made that decision, I knew where I wanted to go forward. Now, at that time, I didn't know I was going to go in. I wasn't going to become a coach.
Mm.
But a lot of my friends and teammates, through my years of training with them and so forth, they always felt like I was going to make a good coach one day if I choose to go that route. And so um, I kind of just backed into it. And I already had said, like, I had 2 friends that asked if I would coach them part-time, and then within a month I had 11, and I was having a lot of fun with it, but I was still so green. I didn't understand everything that goes into the role of being a full-time professional coach. So in that time, I ended up getting my level 1 certification within those
Yeah,
first
because
couple
I'm
of
sure
months.
it's totally different from being an athlete. It's not.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, I had to learn the art of separation at that point, because I
Mm,
started coaching some friends that were teammates of mine and they were still good friends. But I had to explain to them, like, now me being in this role, there's got to be a chain of command, so we're not going to be hanging
yep.
out that much, off the ice or away from training, because there had to be that separation. So in the first 4 years, I had a lot of growing to do as a person. I had to find my coaching style. I had to, develop my coaching philosophy. And fortunately, I had a lot of great mentors to
Mm,
emulate. And, I picked the best of a lot of the coaches that I had trained under and observed. And fortunately, they lended their support to me right away. They offered a lot of advice, and they were sounding boards that I could constantly go to for questions and advice. And so after the first year, had some pretty good success with my development program. And our organization was going through some changes still. And myself and the northern regional coach based in Minnesota, Tom Cushman, we were both uh, added on the duties of the junior national team for the next few years. So from 2000 or 1999 to 2002, we were not only the regional coaches, we were junior national team coaches. So now we were getting to travel with the juniors to the junior world championships, the junior country matches, whether it's in Europe, Asia, whatever. So we're getting our feet wet, and we're developing on an international stage, but with much less consequence. Because while you want to do well at the junior level to be your stepping stone into the senior level,
mhm.
if things go wrong, the consequences aren't as dire. So
Sure.
by the time 2002 came around and the Olympic season's done, you got to remember 2002 we had the Winter Olympics here on our home soil in Salt Lake City. So it was a
Mm,
really, really big quad for us. We had one of our greatest Olympics as a U.S. team ever. And so they were, again, going to go through staffing changes and so forth. And at first, I didn't think I was ready to take on the national team role. I'm only four years into my coaching career. I had I felt a lot to learn. I just felt like I started to develop balance in my life. But my boss at that time, our high performance director, when he found out that I wasn't applying for the national team coach's position, he basically, got really upset, and he stuck it to me. He was just like, "What is this here? I'm hearing you're not gonna, apply for the national team coach's role, and you're gonna stay in Milwaukee and do the juniors and the development." I'm like, "Well, do you really think I'm ready to take on, the national team role and be ready, to be at the Olympics in 4 more years?" He's like, "I didn't spend the last 4 years developing you just as you can stay and be comfortable in Milwaukee. You got to take this role now, and you're just scared. And if you don't take it now, you're never going to be ready, you know?" So I decided, long story short, I decided to submit my resume. And then 2 months later, I was hired on through all the interview process and so forth. And I guess it was more of a formality, because a lot of the skaters, um, when they were approached as to who they wanted as their coach, a lot of the skaters had thrown my hat in the ring, which
yeah.
I was very flattered. But I told them, like, guys, I still have a lot to learn, but that's why they wanted me now, because they felt like if I was gonna grow, they wanted to grow with me from the
Mm,
beginning and not down the road. So 2006 Olympics was my first Olympics as head coach, and I got to live out my childhood dream of going to the Olympics and being a part of the U.S. team, but it was just in a different role. So coaching gave me the second chance that I never thought I was gonna have. Like once I hung up my skates as a competitor, I thought that was it. But coaching provided that platform for me to live my Olympic dream.
that is so inspiring. I think just knowing that you've had these setbacks, right? And I think that's why I'm hoping that any young kid listening to this story tonight is gonna like don't worry, they're gonna be setbacks, and like I hope they're inspired to see like it comes around, and sometimes it really works out pretty well. you
Right,
know?
right. And and to be honest, it wasn't always a linear rise to
Right. It
you
goes
know
back and forth, and you feel like
yeah.
you setbacks and
And I was very fortunate. I had a very strong team. I inherited a strong team in 2002. Some of them were already Olympic medalists and world
Mhm.
champions. And my
Mhm.
my first thought, in that first year is like, I gotta make sure I don't screw this up, because now it's a different game, and the coaches that succeed at this level are superhuman, and I've got my work cut out for me. So I really, really buckled down right away, and I really try to throw myself in 110% just to kind of play catch up a little bit. And again, it went through some up and down phases through those 4 years. But then my second goal was to have, you know, because at the Olympics, in the sprint events, in the 500 and the 1,000 meter back then, you got a guaranteed maximum spot of 4 skaters in the women and the men. And going into Torino, I only had the men, the sprint men.
Mm.
So my goal to walk away with one medal in each event was to have 4 guys that could medal on that day. Because when you live in the world of 100th of a second is the difference between a gold and a silver, or silver and a bronze, or a bronze and no medal, that's a very small margin. And in the sprint, any misstep and you're out of the game. So in order to walk away with one medal, I wanted to raise my odds and have 4 guys that have medal. And I had that going into 2006. So we were fortunate to come away, Joey Cheek winning a gold in the 500 meter and then the silver in the 1,000. I wasn't coaching Shawnee yet at the senior level. I'd coached him a little bit at the junior level years prior, but he had also won the gold medal in the 1,000 meters. So we had and then Chad Hedrick, who was skating under a different coach, Bart Schouten at that time, won gold in the 5,000 meter, and Shawnee and Chad went silver and bronze in the 1,500, and then Chad won a silver in the 10,000 meters. So we came away with 7 medals
Ooh.
total for our
Wow.
program in 2006. And so I had to realize, though, that doesn't always happen. I was very fortunate to be surrounded by great staff, great people. And I was very proud of our team, at that time. So, going into 2010 and then, so forth to now, every situation, every Olympics has been a little bit different, but I always try to surround myself with good people, because success never stands alone. Whether you're the coach or you're the athlete, you need a lot of good people
Mhm.
around you to succeed. And so I try to instill that in my athletes.
Yeah, that's a lot of discipline, and that's a lot of coaching from you. What's it like, a typical day of coaching? Like, what kind of hours do you put in during what part of the training program, the season you're in, and what kind of exercises do you have them do?
Yeah,
What
so
are you going?
we're normally, so if we start at the beginning of the season, we're not on the ice all year round,
Uh,
because again, the expense, the cost of having ice on a 400
Mm.
meter oval is very, very expensive. So we normally start, the national team usually starts around the first week of May in our summer training period, and in the beginning of the year, beginning of that period, we spend a lot of time on the bike, building up our aerobic base. We do a lot of running, a lot of weight training. We're in the weight room minimum twice a week. And then we also do a lot of imitation dry land exercises to simulate the speed skating stroke for both the straightaway and the corners. We do supplemental skating in other forms, like such as inline skating on wheels on the road, or if I set up a track in an empty parking lot. We have an inline treadmill at the oval that we can use for technical training. We'll skate short track as well. That's a big part of our training. And also we'll play bandy, which is a safer form of hockey on the hockey rink. So it helps develop their sprint. sprint muscles more specifically, and it's fun. It feeds their competitive fire because none of them like to lose. So when we play bandy and we split up teams, it gets pretty intense. There's some times where I've had to kind of get in the mix and break them up. Now this picture is of the Masters camp in 2015, and Masters is any skater that's age 30 and older. And usually, like, the divisions are in 10-year segments. So that's John DeMont from California. He's originally from Holland, but he and his wife Liller live in California. And their son Jan he and I used to train together back in the 80s and 90s. But I was asked to help coach the Masters camp back in 2015. So this was one of the pictures that someone took of me with the master skaters on a slide board at the Utah Olympic Oval, and I ended up helping for I think 4 years straight. And then in 2019 I had my heart attack, so I wasn't able to help. And then the last 2 years we weren't able to do it because of the pandemic. But it's a very popular camp. It's always sold out really quickly, and it's a great bunch of skaters and people that come in from all over the world. We've had skaters from Canada, from Europe, coming in 10, and it's a great group of master skaters to help and learn from. I always end up walking away learning something new in my coaching style and something I see. So it's fun to work with them.
I think we have another photo too.
Yeah, there's another photo of this.
Yeah.
Like
When you say dry land training, right? This is
right. So this is dry land training. So anything off the ice is considered like so when we say dry land, that typically means like a skating imitation. So you're gonna mimic some form of skating exercise, but on dry land. So this exercise, what we call tree dance, you take a nylon strap, you tie it off to a pole, and in this position, they're trying to simulate their position for the corner. Their leg isn't extended yet, but typically their right leg will extend out and then it'll come back, and then their left leg will extend under them and go out. And it's just to make sure, you're really teaching them how to be strong in the skating specific muscles, which take a long time to develop. You don't maintain strength by just skating on the ice. You actually start to lose strength. So you gotta maintain that physical strength off the ice.
So are these like exercises that coming up as a skater yourself that you also did from when you started training?
Some of them, yes. Some of the exercises were developed after I was done skating. But I would say the majority of them I did myself as an athlete. So, and nowadays when I think back to when I did it versus now, I'm much more meticulous about how they're executed, and I wish I would have had a little bit more of that one-on-one instruction to kind of really get into it. But I had great coaches. It's just that, like anything, like as you move forward, training and technique moves forward and develops, right? So it's fun when you see the athletes start to make that turn in their development, and you can see that their hard work is starting to pay off, and the light is going off in their head, and they can start to feel and see the difference that they're making.
Well, like as a coach, as kids, right, we're just kind of playing around, and then all of a sudden you're this coach at this international Olympic level and everything. So things are, I'm sure, like a lot more serious with like being disciplined and whatnot. What are as a coach, what are your expectations, your personal mindset, your pet peeves, your personal rules and stuff, if you could share that with us?
Yeah, I guess, when it comes to words of wisdom or guiding values, I've had to learn how to listen, and don't just react. And I that's not always easy for me, because typically I'm a very decisive person. I make decisions pretty quickly and then I act on them. But I've learned in the more recent years to listen a little bit more and not just talk. And especially, a lot of the skaters that are at this level, they have good thoughts themselves. So, it becomes a much more deeper, stronger bond between coach and skater and coaching colleagues and staff and so forth. So that's number one. Second is be passionate about your choice and what you pursue in life. You know, it may not always be fun, you know, and it's probably not going to always be fun. But if it's something that you're passionate about, it really makes those hard days much more manageable, and you'll always find a way to stand back up on your 2 feet when you get knocked down. As far as you know, like a final philosophy, you know, finish what you start. You know, I really believe in being committed to what you do, and you finish what you start. And yeah, and because my definition of excellence is hard work over a long period of time. And I think in this generation, more recently over the last decade or so, especially with social media, a lot of kids and even young adults, they're looking for instant gratification, and they almost forgotten what the meaning of hard work is. You know, they want things, you know, right then, right now. I want it now instead of working for it. And so, you know, just remember, like, you know, finish what you start, because it's not always going to be right then and now. And then as far as a pet peeve, be on time, you know, and if you can't be on time, be early, you know, and that's the one thing.
I should write that for myself. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So this is a picture of me with the great Eric Hayden at the 2010 Winter Olympics. He was our team doctor. And I'm fortunate and very, very lucky to call him a friend. He and his wife moved their practice. He's a doctor. He's an orthopedic surgeon. His wife, Karen, is a hand surgeon, and they have a practice here in Park City, Utah, and also in Salt Lake City, Utah. They moved here about 15 years ago, and it's very we're lucky to be able to have him around the team, because when you're around him, he's one of the most humble guys you'll ever meet. But
he has the unprecedented 5 gold medals,
right? And you don't get the sense that you're standing in the presence of greatness when he's around, because he's so humble. But he loves to talk about skating, and you know, you talk about a guy with the resiliency and the training capacity. There's very few athletes to this day that could probably withstand his training regimen back 40 plus years ago, you know. So, but yeah, so to get back to the pet peeve one, it was just what taught me how to be on time was actually delivering newspapers, and more importantly, you know, Sunday newspapers, because you know, people expect their newspaper to be delivered probably no later than 6 a.m. You know, sometimes it's before that, but you know, they like to have it around between 6 and 7 a.m. They want to drink their coffee and read their Sunday morning paper and this and that. And there's some times where I overslept because I was skating, and you know, we would start getting phone calls right at the house.
Oh, no.
And so people are like, "Where's my newspaper?" And so it's waking up my parents, it's waking up my sisters, it's waking up my brother. So it really taught me how to be punctual. And it's not just because I didn't want my parents
depending on you.
Yeah, I didn't. It's not just because I didn't want my family being bothered, but people were depending on me, and they're paying for that service. So it really taught me the value of, you know, punctuality. And one of my skaters, I remember, he used to be habitually late, and I got the idea from one of our sports psychologists that used to be the sports psychologist for the Utah Jazz, the basketball team. And he said, you know what, institute a $5 fine if they're a minute late. I'm like, $5. He's like, that's what I do with the Jazz. And these guys are millionaires, and they hate paying that $5, you know. See what happens.
$20 later is a lot of money.
Right. And so, you know, and the skater, you know, most skaters, you know, they pay to skate. They're not getting paid to skate. They pay to skate. So $5 to them is a big deal. So we're at a training camp in Milwaukee, and I institute this late fee, and everybody except one of the skaters was okay with it. He was just pissed off about it. And, I had to sit him down privately and have the discussion about it. And he's just like, giving me all the reasons why I shouldn't institute this rule. And in the end, I said, you know what? I said, look, how would you feel if I showed up 30 seconds late for your race? It's over. 500 meters done in 34 seconds.
Yeah.
How would you feel if I was late? And after that, he was just like, okay, I get your point. I said,
yeah, 30 seconds.
Yeah, I said,
actually in your guys' sport, it's done.
Right. But it was more the thought process that be on time.
I like that. If you can't be on time, be early.
Be early. Right. So
I wrote it down for myself because I am sorry. I'm one of those habitually late people.
Just for me, it's just like I'm one of those people that map out my day to the minute. Like I always have something that I have to do. So if people are late, that puts me off my schedule as well. Yeah. And just because it may not be on the training program, I may have a staff meeting that I have to get to, or I may have multiple staff meetings that I got to get to. So
and people are depending on you.
Right. So, at the end of the camp, I said, okay, you guys were really good. I'm taking away the late fee. And one of the other skaters, like, I don't know, Ryan. He's like, I think I need this to keep me going. So
I need the late fee.
Yeah, to keep the late fee. I'm like, okay, I keep it for you then. So
just you.
Yeah. So those are just some of the values that I follow, and I try to instill in my skaters and try to lead by example.
Well, with all of that, that discipline and just being strict and everything, I mean, that has to have had produced results, and it did produce results. Like, what are the accomplishments of your athletes that you've coached?
Over the years, I'm proud of all of them. Everyone, especially in the U.S., in speed skating, we only get the attention every 4 years, surrounding the Olympics. But every year we have a World Cup circuit, which is really important to us. We have the World Championships every year, which in our sport, being world champion is just as prestigious as Olympic champion. A lot of people may not understand that, but it is. And so it's not like you're in the NBA or the Major League Baseball or NFL. If you lose the Super Bowl 1 year, you got next year. If you don't get Olympic medal this time, there's no guarantee that you're going to get another shot at it.
Right.
In 4 years. A lot can happen in 4 years. So it does mean a lot. But, I've been fortunate over my 24 years of coaching, to have had some really good results. I mean, 7 Olympic medals, 3 gold, 2 silver, and 2 bronze, 3 World Sprint Championship titles, 6 World Single Distance Championship titles, 7 world records, and 16 overall World Cup titles. I'm going to say it's not just me. I have a great staff around me that are also unsung heroes that never get the recognition that they deserve. Our medical staff, our athletic trainers, our strength and conditioning coaches, our sports sites, our dietitian, everyone plays a vital, important role in the success of our athletes. And so, I guess, being the head coach, I have to be the sounding board for all of them. But, and I typically get the recognition for the athletes, but it's not just me. I just want to make that clear. This is Joey Cheek winning the gold medal in the 500 meter in Torino at the 2006 Olympics in Italy.
Amazing.
And so I was fortunate, again, like I said, in my first stint as head coach, I got to walk away from the Olympics coaching a Olympic champion and silver medalist.
That's pretty amazing.
I think we have a few more pictures too.
So this was Shawnee Davis in Torino as well after he won the 1,000 meter, and Joey took silver. So we went 1 and 2 in that distance. And that was Shawnee's first gold medal. He ended up winning, defending his gold medal 4 years later in Vancouver. He was the first skater ever to win back-to-back gold medals in the 1,000 meters. No one had ever before had done that. So, and if I recall right now, no one's ever done that since. So, and Shawnee is a legendary athlete, first African-American gold medalist as well.
Yeah.
So what other we got here?
So this was me and Apollo Ono at the closing ceremonies in Vancouver in 2010. And Apollo is still a big part of motivating our athletes. He'll come to Salt Lake City every now and then and give motivational speeches. If we have a junior camp, he'll come out and talk to the young skaters. So he's still giving back to the sport, and one of the nicest guy, one of the hardest working athletes I've ever met.
Awesome.
So got
Let's
some
see.
other
So this is
Olympics.
So this was this year in Beijing. This was Brittany Bull winning the bronze medal in the 1,000 meter, where she's world record holder and defending world champion. This was her first individual Olympic medal. She does have a bronze medal from the team pursuit in 2018, but this was her first individual medal. So this was the night that she actually got her medal, because you don't get your medal right away after the race is over. You have it in venue ceremonies. You get a bouquet of flowers. You get like a little bit of statue, but you wait like another day or so to go to Medal Plaza and actually to get your actual Olympic medal presented to you. So this was right after the ceremony in the green room.
So cool.
Too. This is a famous shot.
There you go. This is like what brought it home for a lot of people this year.
Yeah.
Like recently.
So this was Erin Jackson after she had won the 500-meter Olympic gold medal this past year in Beijing. First African American woman to win in speed skating. And, as you guys probably heard, the story between her and Brittany Bull, at our Olympic trials in Milwaukee in January, we only had one 500-meter, just like it is at the Olympics. For many years, the Olympics 500 was decided with a combination of two 500-meter races, one race from the inner, one race from the outer, to equalize the distances. This was the second time they went back to just having one race. In 2018, they went back to having that race. And so that's how we ran our Olympic trials. And unfortunately, like coming into the Olympic trials, Erin Jackson was ranked number 1 in the 500 in the world in the 500 meter on the World Cup rankings. And she had a bad slip on the backstretch and ended up third. And at the time, we only had 2 spots. So in order for us to get a spot for Erin to go to the Olympics, one of the athletes would have to give up their spots. And Brittany Bull the next day ended up giving her spot to EJ so she could be officially on her roster. And fortunately, a couple of weeks later, we ended up getting a 3rd spot because some of the countries did not use their spot. So Brittany ended up getting to race anyway. So it worked out. But a lot of people don't understand that if Brittany didn't give up her spot, we had no place to have EJ officially on our roster to submit to the Olympic Committee on time before the deadline. So that had to be done no matter what. So it just goes to show the kind of captain and leader that Brittany is, and she commands a lot of respect and recognition for that, because it was a huge gesture. And this was at the World Cup final a few weeks after the Olympics was done. It was a first for me. I've had 2 of my skaters win overall World Cup titles in the same year, but this was the first time I had 3. And so Brittany won the 1,000-meter. It was her 6th or 7th World Cup 1,000-meter title. Erin Jackson won the 500-meter overall title, and Joey Mantilla also won the 1,500-meter World Cup title. And Joey also won a bronze medal in Beijing as part of our men's team pursuit bronze medal winning team. So all 3 of them came home from the Olympics with Olympic medals, and all 3 of them are from the same hometown in Ocala, Florida. So they all come from inlining under the same inline coach, Renee Hildebrand. And so we got invited down a couple of weeks ago by the mayor of Ocala to celebrate their homecoming, and it was nice to share that moment with Renee. So it was a proud moment for all of us.
So we have a question from the audience. It said, "Tell them about the Order of Ecos medal you received, Ryan."
So that's my sister Kireen.
Okay.
So,
hey, see what? Kareem, where were you? Are you calling in from Hawaii or?
She's in Hawaii.
Oh, okay. So it's not like 2 a.m. wherever she is.
No. My sisters and my brother are all in Hawaii. So, but So the Order of Ecos they started doing that in 2010. The U.S. Olympic Committee gave this opportunity for the athletes that win Olympic medals a chance
Mhm.
to recognize someone that inspired them or
Hmm.
played a coaching role in their success. And so Ecos in Greek mythology was officially like what they say is the first Olympic coach in history. And so that's where
Mm.
the title Order of Ecos comes in. So in 2010, uh, Shawnee Davis won a gold medal again, defending his 1,000, and won a silver medal in the 1,500. And so he was able to present 2 Order of Ecos medals, and I was one of the recipients of the Order of Ecos from
Oh,
Shawnee Davis in 2010. So it's yeah, it was a really big surprise. I honestly thought, it should go to his mom, even though she wasn't a coach. She was a big motivating factor in his life,
hmm.
and sacrificed a lot for him. So for him to present that to me was a huge honor, and it's definitely uh, something that I cherish.
Wow, that's awesome. That's oh there you hi Korea.
That is awesome. That is awesome.
Sweet 16 days to now. What What? So we spent a lot of time before we wrap up the show. We spent a lot of time talking about how we met, as kids, pedaling on the bike, becoming friends, and your skating career and your coaching career, all the way up to now. But what's in store for Ryan Shimabukuro from now for the future?
Well, right now I'm still trying to decompress from the season, trying to recharge my batteries and have a chance to reflect on what we accomplished this year. Because after the Olympics, I didn't get to come home. I went straight to Europe for 3 more weeks. We
Oh,
had the World Championships in Norway, and then we had the World Cup finals. And then when I got home, I ended up getting COVID like the day after
No,
I arrived.
well, I'm
So
glad you're okay.
I went 2 years. I went 2 years without
Oh,
getting COVID, and then I was afraid I was going to get stuck in Europe, if I got COVID, and you got to take tests the day before you get on the flight. And 3 of our skaters ended up testing positive, so they couldn't get on the
oh,
flight. And um, I was negative, so I got on the flight, and I got in my seat. I was like, okay, I'm going home finally. And the very next day, I started feeling sick, and yeah, the next day I tested positive. So I was recovering from that. Then we had to fly down to Florida to do the homecoming. So it's just been in the last week or two that I've been able to decompress and start to really reflect on this past season and this last 4 years in the Olympic quad, and everything that we've been through as a team. And
mm,
moving forward, I I guess I'll start going into contract renegotiations for the next 4 years with U.S. Speed Skating, and start planning not only for next season, but for the next 4 years in the upcoming Olympic cycle for 2026, which is Milano Cortina, Italy. Yeah.
I have one more quick question. I know, sorry, but I just want to know what can we do in Hawaii to kind of attract or develop the next a speed skater given our proximity, right? I know it was difficult probably being so like far away from where the center of the Olympic team is. What can we do in Hawaii?
Well, I mean, we have the Ice Palace. I know it's been closed for the last 2 years, right? And
But
so
it's still
obviously
there. It's still
it's still
standing.
there. Yeah, it's still there. Doug Taylor is probably just waiting for the go ahead to get it open and put the ice back in, because it's obviously really popular. A lot of people still
mm,
go there and skate. They have a
Yeah.
lot of skating programs for figure skating and hockey. There is unfortunately no speed skating programs there. But the number one is just getting out there. But you're gonna have to realize that if you have any Olympic ambitions in the sport, in any of the ice sports, you're probably at some point going to have to move to the mainland, because you're going to need regular training times and facilities, and you're going to have to compete. So just from the financial standpoint alone, you can't fly to and from Hawaii every time you have to go to a training camp or to compete. It just costs too much money.
Yeah.
That would be like if I was born and raised in Utah and I wanted to be a professional surfer. I'm not going to
mm,
become a professional surfer surfing in a wave tank in Texas or something. I'm going to have to move to Hawaii or California or Florida or Australia, somewhere where I can be
More
surrounded
consistent, yeah, by the
in that environment. However, but that's not to say that Hawaii can't be the stepping stone and the springboard to somebody, getting into a winter sport, like into a winter ice sport. So it's just a matter of having the mindset that, I can start here. I know I'm probably going to have to eventually move, but if this is what I want, this is what I understand is a part of the process, then I'm willing to do that.
willing to
Once
do
they
it.
once they make their choice, then from there things become quote unquote easier. Just because now you know what your path is. A lot of people struggle with that when they don't know what their path is. But once you make the decision,
Kind of, yeah, not
everything
really
starts to
sure.
become everything
It's
starts to
not
become
place.
clear. Yeah. So that would be my advice.
Well, the last question I have before we end the show: when do I get to see my childhood friend in Okinawa?
That's on my bucket list. I've always wanted to go to
Gotta go.
Okinawa. I haven't been yet. My brother and my sister-in-law have gone to Okinawa because she has family there, and it'd be great to share a meal in
That's in
Okinawa.
Tokyo. This is in
Yeah,
Tokyo, right?
that's in Akasaka, in suburb of Tokyo,
Yep.
back in 2015 at Ogos Onoloa.
Ozonoloa,
Yeah,
Roji's place.
yeah. And Ryoji's back in Hawaii now, right?
He has a food truck going around. Yeah, he
Yeah,
still does
yeah,
flying food lunches and stuff. And
yeah.
You gotta
this is
go.
2015. This is 2015 when I did my reserve duty at Yokota, and I saw Ryan, put it on Facebook. Hey, I'm in Tokyo. And I'm thinking, what are you doing in Tokyo? I'm in Tokyo too. So I message him, and we get together like a day or two later after we message each other. 2015. The last time we saw each other was like in the early 1980s. So
Yeah,
this
yeah,
picture is
Oh,
30 something years later. Two
right.
childhood friends. I meet him in Shinagawa at the hotel. We jump in the taxi. We go to Akasaka, and we're just catching up on over 3 decades of stories over Hawaiian food in Tokyo.
Yeah, because
So
that was
this,
the
oh,
year.
man.
That was the year I was coaching in Japan. I was coaching the national team in Japan, and so yeah, it just so happened that
awesome
Colin
timing.
Colin was working in Tokyo, and he saw that I was working there. Like, hey, let's get together. So
This is us, and one more picture, I guess, before we end the show is this picture. I think this describes the Flying Hawaiian, my childhood friend from the
This is
okay.
the Flying Hawaiian right here.
That's Ryan right there. That's
So
the $1 million shot right there on the water wakeboarding.
so yeah, I love to wakeboard. That's my outlet and my passion outside of skating. And my shout out to my older brother Reed, who got me started in wakeboarding in 1994. My brother,
Ooh.
he used to own a wakeboard shop called R&R Surf and Ski on Kaneohe Bay on the Marine Corps base, and from 1995 to 2003. And he was a big pillar in the wakeboard community during those years. And yeah, he got me started on it, and I still do it to this day. And yeah, I'm a fish. Growing up in Hawaii, I love to be in the water. So being in Utah, we have a lot of lakes. So
So you
yeah,
make do,
still
right, with what you got. And look, holy cow.
exactly, exactly. So yeah, even at my age, I still like to go out and throw it down.
Well,
Yep,
mahalo,
yep.
Ryan, for just taking time out to share with us your story today, and just for sharing your Uchinanchu Aloha with everyone you meet. And I hope we can meet up again. I hope it's not another 30 years that we have to wait.
Oh, no,
When you get to see each other again. Thanks, Ryan.
absolutely. Thank you, you guys
I
for
love this. Yeah, Samuel
allowing me.
Bushkin.
Yeah.
You say consider writing a book so you can tell your story and then add some colorful illustrations in there and
Yes,
make it something to
that'd be
inspire our
awesome.
keiki. Because
Yeah,
I do think that like there's a lot of kids who would learn a lot, and not just like you work hard, you get places, but also the setbacks but the way you've been able to move forward is just so
Mm.
inspiring to us. And what a career, and somebody had mentioned earlier, passion is the difference between your job and a career, and you've really made a career out of it, and we're so inspired by
well,
everything you
thank
do. And
you.
yes, you make us proud. You make us so proud.
Great life
Mahalo.
coach. Great life coach.
Yeah. No, thank you guys for allowing me the opportunity to share my story and to give thanks back to the Hawaii United Okinawan Association and the Young Okinawans Association. Like I said, you guys have been big supporters of me and my family since day one, and I can't thank you enough. And thank you to Colin for driving this.
Messed
And
up, yeah.
yeah. So
My childhood buddy.
yeah, so I'm still trying to get home to Honolulu within the next month or so before the season starts, but hopefully that'll happen.
Yeah, I can decompress here.
Yeah,
Decompress here.
normally I do, but we got a lot of work meetings coming up, so hopefully I can get away for a little bit before the season starts. So
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Ryan. And for those of you who are joining us tonight, please remember to like and share and follow our HUOA YouTube page. Subscribe so you can get notifications when our next story comes out. But and if the spirit moves you, please donate as well. It helps us continue to bring stories like Ryan Shimabukuro to the world. So, like from the bottom of our hearts, thank you so much. And thank you for
Mahalo.
appreciate it, everyone. Thanks for everyone for tuning in. I appreciate you guys' supports and your comments.